Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Welcome to the Secrets of a Ghostwriter. Some of our tutorials we'll revisit from time to time because you can't say everything in one particular sitting. Self-publishing versus publishing is probably the best example of that. There are so many elements to self-publishing that we need to break them down into a few little sessions. But one thing that I want to address here is an unknown for people when they begin that process of self-publishing. And it is, of course, like many of these tutorials, only something that experience you've gained over a period of time can give you that insight to report back to people at the beginning of that process. And the biggest area has to be money that you waste on the self-publishing journey. The very first book I self-published was with a superb firm. They were no different from a publishing house, except, of course, you're putting your own money into it. I can't fault them in any way, but I do recall opening the initial package from them, and they were selling me a lot of other services. And in my naivety and enthusiasm and belief that I was going to sell a lot of books, which I didn't on that occasion, I, of course, signed up to almost everything. As time goes on, and particularly in the DNA of the self-published writer, it becomes apparent you end up doing most of these things yourself. Now, if you've watched the webinar, I talked about the fact that you are an entrepreneur. You are. Give yourself some credit. You've dreamt up a product that is entirely yours and entirely new. The concept of a book, age old, but the contents of that book, no one's ever seen before unless you've been foolish enough to plagiarize. So you'll see yourself as a writer and not as an entrepreneur, but you'll be streetwise enough to realize that in almost every walk of life nowadays, we form our expert knowledge from our contemporaries in cyberspace. This generation has the blessing when it comes to self-publishing, when it comes to writing, that all the tools are out there, and they're often cheaper than those that a reputable self-publishing firm may offer you. And just to recap, self-publishing can be through a firm or entirely on your own with devices like print on demand. Yes, there are people that will watch what you do and will try and take your money. Publicity assistance would be one of them. But I am a firm believer there are only two things you should be spending any money on if you are self-publishing. And you may well know somebody that can take this expense away from you. The first one being a cover designer. There's an old saying, isn't there, never judge a book by its cover, but not entirely sure about that. You see a bad cover and, well, hopefully you've got enough nous about you to look inside. But those two words, look inside, are also very important because most of our purchases are digital. And one of the options on Amazon is look inside. So the cover of a book has still a huge amount of importance because it's your billboard. It's your first calling card to attract people. But actually, it's not like you're standing in a bookstore for 30 minutes and that cover can transmit a trance over you, like maybe in the old days. If the look inside option comes up on a book, and if you're self-publishing, you should make it available, try before you buy is a winner, then you're automatically past that cover. But you do still need a cover, obviously. You'll probably know somebody who can do a cover for you, but show some respectability and give it the status that it deserves. It's not the be all and end all, but it's worth spending some money on. Now, the second area that you really must spend some money on, and I shake my head at the amount of people that simply think that because they believe the manuscript is ready, then it's ready. I have never not self-published a book without paying a proofreader. I think my eyes are pretty good. The software on whichever tool you are using to write, so for me I will use Microsoft Word, is pretty good. It flags up quite a few things with squiggles, but it doesn't see everything. The benefit of a proofreader who is good is so incredible, because not only will they make the spelling mistakes, as you get to know them a bit during the process, they will offer their own insight too, which is perhaps outside of the remit. So you offer a piece of work to be proofread and they will come back with all of the typos, etc. But they will suggest a little bit more because it's in their nature, because they are in the publishing world, and in the publishing world, every book goes to print and could still be bettered. At some point, of course, you have to call it off. Now, I pay a proofreader, a guy called Matt Rance, who's the proof professor on Twitter, X. I pay him around £500 for about 90,000 words. The amount you pay is, of course, in relation to the amount of words. And within a fortnight, Matt will send back to me the document, and I'm aghast every time at what he's found. And stuff that you don't see, because he's got those fresh eyes. It's a piece of work to him, but it's not a piece of work that he's been immersed in for the last 6 to 12 months like you have. So he'll see double spaces that Microsoft Word might not pick up. He'll see an indentation that I haven't noticed. And of course, he'll see all the big stuff. And one area where I really need this guy is if, for example, I'm writing a book that might have 2 different spellings that are acceptable. Barbecue, for example. I think actually there are probably 3 if you write it in its abbreviated form. So consistency is king. So a spell check wouldn't necessarily flag up an incorrect spelling of something like barbecue, but a proofreader, a human being with fresh eyes, would say, pick one and be consistent. In a process that is largely solitary writing, this has to be the key point in which you reach out for help. So I would not spend any money on anything other than a cover designer and a proofreader. And I always hear people say, well, I've had my friend who's a teacher look over it and it's pretty good to them. That kind of stuff is not the level of professionalism that is going to get you taken seriously, and you'll regret it, because one of the first things that people will write on an Amazon review is not, this is a really good book. They'll write, could have done with an editor, could have done with a proofreader. I liked it, but, and therefore it leaves a stain. So invest in the money in hiring that second set of eyes and hiring a proofreader. Once that book's out there, there's no turning back, but you can stop that process of negativity that the reviews might bring if you hire another set of eyes. And the guy I'm talking about in question uses both those eyes, and having edited over 20 million words professionally, has now built his own software as well. So he's my guy. I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time when the secrets of a ghostwriter continues.